Sri Krishna, as we know him, is a prominent character from the Mahabharata. But what if I told you that almost everything you know about Krishna, including his name and his religion, was wrong? Join me in this investigation to discover who Krishna from the Mahabharata really was. Let's first look into the name Krishna. For this video, we'll use the Mahabharata to identify mentions of Krishna within it. Surprisingly, we find 3 different individuals named Krishna. The first one is the author of the Mahabharata himself, the poet Vyasa. But wait a second, his name is Vyasa, so how is he also Krishna? Well, in the Mahabharata, he was also known as Krishna Dvaipayana, which translates to the Dark One from 2 islands. Remember, this is how people were named in the ancient world. There were no last names. People were identified by their hometowns or their parents' names, like Jesus of Nazareth or Thor Odinson, meaning son of Odin. The second Krishna in the Mahabharata is Draupadi. And no, I'm not joking. Her name wasn't actually Draupadi. She was known as Draupadi because her father's name was Drupad, making her the daughter of Drupad. Her birth name was Krishna Panchali, meaning the dark-skinned girl from the town of Panchala. Now, let's discuss the focus of today's video. Krishna, or Krishna Vasudeva as he was known back then. He first appears in the story during the wedding procession of Draupadi, making him the 3rd Krishna introduced. He is the same Krishna who assists the Pandavas in winning the battle of Kurukshetra, and possibly the same Krishna who narrates the Bhagavad Gita. The Mahabharata is completely silent about the early life of this Krishna. Earlier, when I said there were 3 Krishnas, I kinda lied. There is possibly also a 4th Krishna, known as Krishna Gopala. This character comes from the Harivamsa, which depicts the childhood adventures of a young boy in the town of Gokula. The uncertainty arises because the Harivamsa was written centuries after the Mahabharata. It could be an entirely separate text that merged into the character who was similarly named, or it could be a kind of fan fiction written by followers of Krishna Vasudeva many years later. A critical study of the Harivamsa shows that it mainly elaborates on snippets mentioned in the Vishnu Purana, which itself was written between the 1st and 4th centuries AD. This phenomenon of expanding upon a character's backstory is common in many other religions as well. For example, the oldest of the Christian Gospels, the Book of Mark, begins its narrative with Jesus' ministry and skips his backstory. However, later Gospels include stories from, or even before, his birth. Ancient authors often added backstories and side stories to flesh out their favorite characters, not necessarily for historical accuracy, but for the enjoyment of their contemporaries. Let's delve into the Mahabharata. At its core, it's a tale of infighting among cousins over land rights. The conflict escalates as both parties seek external assistance. However, over the years, this story has expanded into 100,000 verses. It's evident that works such as the Puranas and the Mahabharata were used by various writers from different cults at different times to propagate their own beliefs and doctrines. They became repositories for the writings of people from a wide range of perspectives. The basic life of the Kuru clan centered around the Vedic Brahmanical religion, which included fire rituals, horse sacrifices, and a materialistic pursuit of life, all stemming from Indo-Aryan traditions. The Vedic religion primarily worshipped Indra, with natural forces like fire, wind, and the sun personified. Hymns were recited to these deities while offering materials like milk, grain, and ghee, aiming to fulfill desires for children, cattle, etc., or to thwart enemies. This was a primitive form of spirituality. A few centuries after the Kurukshetra war, parallel religions such as Buddhism and Jainism began to flourish. Another emergent religion, which we'll call Bhagavatism here, rejected the superficial excesses of Vedic worship. It's unclear whether Krishna Vasudeva started this religion, or if it was his disciples who propagated his teachings. By the 4th century BC, Bhagavatism was thriving as a religious reform movement, denouncing animal sacrifices and the ineffectiveness of ritual sacrifices, advocating devotion as the path to salvation, directly opposing Vedic Brahmanism. The worship of Krishna Vasudeva was widespread, from the heart of India in Madhya Pradesh to the Indo-Greek kingdoms of Bactria, now modern-day Afghanistan. The earliest known reference to Krishna Vasudeva is found on the Heliodorus pillar in Vidisha, Madhya Pradesh. It mentions the Garuda standard of the god of gods, Vasudeva. But how do we know this? Vasudeva is the same as Krishna Vasudeva from the Mahabharata. The same warrior god appears on coins from Bactria. These coins feature Samkarshana, another name for Balarama, Krishna's brother, and Krishna Vasudeva himself, holding a conch and Sudarshan chakra and adorned with a Garuda headdress. This coin art likely originated from a now lost sculpture of Krishna from that era. Notably, Vishnu worship hasn't been mentioned so far, and this is from the 2nd century BC. Moving to the 1st century BC, the Gosandi inscription from Rajasthan associates Krishna Vasudeva and Balarama Samkarshana with Narayana, i.e. Vishnu. This provides an approximate timeline for when Bhagavata religion began merging with Vedic Brahmanism. Now let's pause. How did two distinct religions merge? We need to revisit the religious dynamics during the formation of the Bhagavata religion. Like Buddhism and Jainism, Bhagavatism advocated devotion as the path to salvation and was initially opposed by Vedic Brahmanism. Bhagavatists, or Krishna Vasudeva worshippers, embraced idolatry, constructing temples and venerating images. In contrast, the Vedic tradition eschewed icon worship, focusing solely on sacrificial rites. The absence of idols and temples in our myths is no coincidence. Idol worship is fundamentally non-Vedic. For the Bhagavatas, devotion and divine favor were central, making caste and gender irrelevant. They believed in a loving, merciful God who does not discriminate among his devotees. In the Bhagavata Purana, 332-227, Kapila teaches that while a person engaged in pravriti dharma, worshipping gods and forefathers with sacrificial ceremonies, will be born again and again, one engaged in nivriti dharma, worshipping Hari with devotion and surrendering all actions to him, will merge with the universal consciousness. This philosophy starkly contrasted with the Vedic practice of requiring Brahmin priests to mediate salvation through sacrificial rituals. The inclusivity of Bhagavatism, admitting women and Sudras into their fold, was another reason for Vedic Brahmins to denounce them. The central scripture of Bhagavatism, the Bhagavad Gita, outlines paths to salvation through selfless action, devotion, and meditation. Krishna worship posed a significant threat to the social and political elites, both the priestly and political classes. Krishna challenged the existing system of worship based on fear and greed, and criticized the Vedas and Vedic rituals as obstructions. To undermine Krishna's reputation, his detractors resorted to slander. Those familiar with the Gita know it is narrated amidst the battlefield, a profound text discussing renunciation, the highest truth, the nature of self, the law of karma, and the nature of God. Importantly, the Bhagavad Gita was a standalone book, integrated into the Mahabharata narrative centuries later. Realistically, no one would narrate 18 chapters during a battle. In the Mahabharata, Krishna is depicted in several incidents as deceitful, tricking Drona and Jayadratha into their deaths, and similarly influencing the death of Duryodhana. This portrayal contrasts with the God described in the Gita as the embodiment of the highest truth. This discrepancy arises because the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata were penned by different religious groups, the Bhagavatas glorifying Krishna through the Gita, while Vedic Brahmins slandered him through their narratives. When Bhagavatism was absorbed into Vedic religion, these inconsistencies remained. Simultaneously, the Bhagavatas developed their own mythology. In the Harivamsa, during a festival in Gokul, Krishna persuades the townsfolk to cease worshipping Indra, who retaliates with thunderstorms. Krishna then shelters the town by lifting a nearby mountain, leading to Indra's defeat and the people's shift in worship to Krishna. The Vedic attempt to discredit Bhagavatism did not diminish Krishna Vasudeva's reverence. The religion continued to flourish. The Vedic approach eventually shifted to appropriating Bhagavatism, absorbing it into their pantheon, a tactic later partially attempted with Buddhism. Was this the end of the progressive and compassionate Bhagavata religion? Not quite. Even after its integration, Krishna's message remained potent, fundamentally transforming Hinduism and overshadowing Vedic Brahmanism. Today, Hinduism is predominantly Bhagavatism, with earlier Vedic deities like Indra and Brahma fading into obscurity. The worship of Brahma is nearly taboo, and Vishnu plays a lesser role in his own religion. The deities we predominantly worship now, Rama, Krishna, Shiva, Ganesha, are all non-Vedic. In essence, the Bhagavata religion triumphed. Thank you for watching and see you next time.